Okay. At this point, let me go ahead and share my screen because I don't believe you are actually looking at my screen. Let me go right here. Share screen, desktop, share, PowerPoint, and the class begins. Okay, we're going to try to understand the issue of what economics is. During this semester specifically, we're going to try to understand the issue of macroeconomics, right? But before to be able to understand the macroeconomics, we need to understand the fundamentals of what economics is. So try to understand the basic fundamentals of economics, we need to try to understand why is economics important and what exactly economics is. So then the goal of this class is to try to understand specifically how we make decisions, and we're going to try to understand how business actually make decisions. We're going to try to understand how the market shapes economic outcomes and how or what is the role of the government in the economy. Okay? So these are the things that we're going to be doing. Specifically for this class, we're going to go mostly in small businesses, right? But at this point, we're just trying to understand a basic concept of what economics is. And then that way we'll be able to understand how we can understand economics to make better decisions for ourselves. So let's begin by just giving you the core issue or the core problem of economics. As you already know, we live in a world of limited resources, right? We all have limited resources. So there's a lot of things that we want, but we cannot afford them, right? Or simply we don't have the means to be able to buy those things. The same thing happened with the nations. Nations have to make choices, right? It doesn't really matter what nation we are talking about, they have to make choices. And the choices that nations have to make is, what are we going to make, how are we going to make it, and for whom we're going to make it. For example, in the United States, the things that we make them, based on the demand of the market. The how we're going to make things, so how we make things in the United States is by using the most efficient method. And for whom do we make them? Well, in this case, in the United States, we make items for people that have the ability to pay for this product, okay? So we are trying to understand that it doesn't really matter who you are or how much you have, there's limitations of resources, right? And we make choices. Think about you. When you go to the store and you decide to buy something, when you go to the restaurant, how do you make your decision? Well, you make your decision not only on how hungry you are, and not only on how much money do you have, but you also make your decision on how much money you want to spend. In other words, you look at the price of a product and you say, well, is it really worth it for me to pay $15 for this plate? Should I just go ahead and only buy something that is cheaper and that way I can come back and do it again? And that's what economics is. Economics is the issue of choices. For example, in the United States, which is one of the largest nations of the world, I don't know if you know this, but the United States is the third largest nation in the world by population. We have China #1, India #2, and the United States is #3. It's the third largest nation in the world by population. We have 326 million people in the United States. And 326 million people in the United States, they make decisions every day. They make decisions about what to do, what to buy, what to sell, what to consume, where are they going to go to job? In other words, we make decisions every single day. So then the economy is us. It's the sum of all the production and consumption activities that we engage in a simple day, right? And again, the main core problem of economics is the issue of scarcity. And scarcity simply means that there's not enough resources to satisfy all the things that you want. And because you don't have enough resources, then choices have to be made. They have to be made at the individual level, and they also have to be made at the economic level, as a nation level, at the size, the economy, the government, the nation have to make choices. Think about, for example, a nation like the United States, right? It has a lot of resources, but even then, the choices have to be made. For example, if we use the steel that we have in the United States to make automobiles, then that steel is not going to be able to be used to make bridges. or to make buildings, or to make tanks, or to make airplanes. So choices have to be made. At the individual level, it's the same thing with me and you. We have to make choices, right? So in many cases, we have to simply come to the realization that there's going to be a lot of wants that are going to go unfulfilled. Think about all the things that you desire. I mean, I have a dream, and the dream is one day to have a Ferrari. Well, the reality is that it is that. It's only a dream. It's never going to happen. Why is it never going to happen? Well, because I have a small problem. And what is the small problem that I have? That I don't have $180,000 to buy a car. I mean, for some people, like Bill Gates, that's a small problem. For people like me, it's a problem that I will never going to be able to surpass. So then my need is going to go unfulfilled. Well, I don't know if it's a need, it's a want. It's going to go unfulfilled. So then, because of the issue of scarcity, then we all have to make economic choices, right? The same thing goes with a nation. If we look at a nation, different nations have different factors of production. For example, we have the issue of labor, the workers. We have the issue of land, the issue of capital, and the issue of entrepreneurship ability. So these are the four inputs that we use to produce things. These are the factors of production. Let me give you an example. For example, think about a nation like the United States and think about the amount of workers that we have. In the United States, we have 326 million people, and it's about 158 million people is actually the labor force, which simply means we have about 158 million people that they're able, capable, and willing to work. Then we have land, and by land, we're not only talking about land, but we're talking about all natural resources. We have timber, we have minerals, we have aluminum, we have steels, all the natural resources that we can use. And then we have capital. Capital is simply machinery. Capital is machinery. So anything that can be used to increase productivity, that will be part of capital, okay? And then we have entrepreneurship ability. This is what we call knowledge, smart people. So then with natural resources, with smart people, with workers, and with capital, boom, we can make a lot of products. And that's what we're talking about, okay? How nations make decisions. So then when you use a resource to make something, then that resource is not going to be able to be used to make something else. Think about the United States military force. How big is the US military force? I mean, at this point, I don't remember, but think about the millions of young men, strong, healthy, smart young men that they're actually serving in the military. What benefit are we getting, economically speaking, of having 5 million young men and women actually being on the field practicing for combat? Think about it. What is the economic benefit that a nation gets by having young men on the fields practicing for war? And in reality, we get absolutely no economic benefit, right? So as a result of that, then we are not utilizing the resources to the best use. However, it is a necessary thing. We need to do that. So in many cases, we make choices even if they're not the best choices. The choice has to be made just because it needs to be there. So then economics is the study of how we allocate scarce resources about competitive uses. What are we going to do with the resources that we have, right? At the micro level, once we begin to talk about it, microeconomics, we're going to try to understand, for example, how companies determine which specific resource they're going to use. See, at this point, we're just learning, the basic of economics. Before I continue, if there's any questions up to this point. Okay, we'll continue then. So in every decision that you make, guys, there's a cost involved, right? And that's what we call opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is the cost that you incur by choosing to do something. Think about some of you, for example. You're going to be in my class for 2 hours. What is the cost of you being in this class for 2 hours? It's not only the tuition that you're paying, it's not only the cost of the book, but it's the opportunity cost that you are incurring by being in class. How many of you are working besides Nathaniel? Okay, where else are you working? Where are you working, sir?
We're doing some contracting work.
Okay, you're doing, Mikea, you're doing some contracting work. Okay, so think about Mikea and Nathaniel. They are both working. Now, let's assume that you're getting paid, let's say, $10 an hour. $10 an hour, that's how much you're getting paid. Now, Nathaniel is actually out delivering pizzas and he probably make about $10 an hour. Okay, now look at his cost. By being in my class, it's costing him the potential earnings of $20. He has just lost $20, $10 an hour. So now, how many hours are we going to meet? Does anybody know how many hours we're going to meet during this session? It's 45 hours, guys. All semester classes is 45 hours. By law, you have to be in class for 45 hours. So 45 hours times $10 an hour, you're losing the potential of earning $450. And that's an opportunity cost. So then the question is, why do you choose to be in class when you're going to lose $450, potential income of $450? I'm asking.
Would it be because of the potential outcome that the credit hours would have on your undergraduate studies?
Okay, because you're looking about probably in the future, you're going to get a better high paying job because you're going to be a college educated individual. So at this point you say, okay, $10 an hour cost me, but it's gonna cost me more if I don't take this choice. In other words, you believe that the college education is going to be able to give you a better paying job. And let me tell you, yes, it will. Think about, for example, how the coronavirus has impacted millions of people in the last couple of weeks. How many people do we have unemployed? Anybody know what happened to the numbers of the unemployment in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Is it somewhere around 20 to 30 million?
It's actually a little bit more than 30 million at this point. I think we have more than 30 million people that have actually applied for unemployment benefits. Now think about this, guys. 30 million people have applied for unemployment benefits. How about the ones that they do not qualify? They are not able to apply. So in other words, the number is bigger. So we have, let's say, 40 million people out of work, right? So who are these people? Most of these people that lost their jobs are people that work in industries in which their job cannot be done by computers, servers, hairstylists, people that work on the retail industries. So who are the people that probably this coronavirus has not impacted them? Well, people like me, professional individuals like my wife here next door, that is able to bring their jobs and be able to work by the house, in the house, by the use of computers. So yeah, a college education will prepare you to be able to deal with situations like this. So there's a cost involved, but there's also a cost of not making a choice. So there's a cost in every decision that we make. In economics, we call that opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the cost that you incur by choosing something. And the way that we measure opportunity cost is by looking at the loss divided by the gain. That's the way we measure opportunity cost. Loss divided by gain. Okay, in economics, we use a model called the production possibility curve that tries to illustrate this concept, which is very, very simple concept. Let me move into this other computer. And let me explain this concept of opportunity cost. I'm changing the my settings to be able to share the screen. Okay, here we go. Let's see if it works this time. Okay, in economics, we have a very simple model called the production possibility curve. And the production possibility curve is simply a model that illustrates the maximum an economy is able to produce if they use all the resources to the fullest. For example, let's assume that this is a company or this is a nation, and this is the production of tanks and the production of cars. Okay, so we use steel to make tanks, or we can use steels to make cars. And I'm just gonna make up some numbers. Let's say I can make 20 tanks and 10 cars, or I can go over here and produce 10 tanks and 15 cars. Okay, this is point A, point B, and let's go right here. Let's say this is 5 and this is, let's say 20. Okay, so look at this. So these are three possible outputs that we can produce if we use all the resources to the fullest. Remember the resources that we have land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship ability. So if we use all the resources to the maximum, this is how much we can produce. Now, at point A, I'm producing 20 tanks and 10 cars. Now, what will happen, for example, if now I feel, my nation is at feel that we're no longer going to be at war, we don't need tanks. So now, instead of having tanks, we're going to produce more cars. And I decide to change my production from point A to point B. Now, what is my gain when I move from point A to point B? I gain 5 cars. I went from 10 to 15. What did I lose? I lose 10 tanks. So opportunity cost is equals to loss divided by gain. So in this case, when I go from point A to point B, my loss is 10 tanks, but I gain 5 cars. So then my opportunity cost is 2. So now what that means? It's very simple. It simply means that for every 1 unit that I gain, in this case cars, I lose 2 tanks. See, opportunity cost measures your gain as a well, actually it measures your loss divided by your gain. So it gives me a cost of 2. Now, what is my cost when I move from B to C? Help me. What is my opportunity cost when I move from B to C? What did I lose? Guys, I need participation.
You lost 5 tanks and you gained 5 cars, so your opportunity cost is 1.
Exactly. So what did that number 1 means? That for every 1 unit that I gain, I lose 1 unit of what I let go. And that's my opportunity cost, is measure your loss over your gain. How about if I am at A and I move all the way from A to C? What will be my cost? From A to C, my cost will be what? 15.
Over
my
10.
gain will be what? 10?
Mm-hmm.
So then my cost will be 1.5. It simply means that for every car that I'm going to gain, because that's what I choose, I'm going to lose 1.5 tanks. So then the model of the production possibility curve simply illustrates what is the maximum we can produce if we use all the resources, and it also illustrates the issue of opportunity cost. So then if we have a curve that looks something like this, and again, this is tanks and this is cars, all the points in the line are possible points. In which I am It's possible for me to do that because the lines represents the maximum I can produce. Now, can I produce at point X? And the answer is no, because point X is outside the frontier. It's unattainable. I cannot reach that point. Now, how about point T right here? And the answer is yes, I can make that combination. I don't know what it is, but I can make that combination because it's inside or less than what I'm capable. But if I am producing point T instead of point B, then I'm producing less than what I'm capable. So that's a point of inefficiency. It's a point of inefficiency. I'm producing less than what I'm able. Now, can I produce a point X? And the answer is no, because it's above my capabilities. The only way I can produce a point X is if I expand the whole frontier, right? In other words, if I learn how to do things better, new resources. And again, for two of you, for Michael and Nathaniel, this is a review because we learned that in the last class. Okay, in other words, that's the only way I can achieve point X. In most cases, that's what we call in economics by experiencing economic growth. The number one source of economic growth is increasing technology. If we learn how to do things actually better. Okay? Questions? Okay, so then the production possibility frontier illustrates a couple of concepts, the issue of scarcity, the trade-offs, and opportunity costs. Right? So we can see right here on this example, okay? Look at this, I can produce either trucks or I can produce tanks. I can produce point B, point C, point D, doesn't really matter. If I am at D and I decide to move my production to more trucks, what is my cost? Well, I lost almost one tank and I gained one truck, so my cost will be one, and so on. So that's opportunity cost. Very simple, guys. I don't want to insult your intelligence because they are very simple concepts to understand. Okay, so there's always a trade-off. Now, how do we calculate it? For example, how much is my cost when I move from point A to point B? Remember, I lose one, I gain two, so then my cost is 1/2. If I go from B to C, I lose one, I gain one, my cost is 1. You know, from C to D, I lose 1 and I gain 0.8, so it's about 1.20. And again, that's opportunity cost. Loss divided by gain, right? So each time we choose something, we have to let go of something. And again, all the points on the line, they are points of efficiency. That means that we are producing what we are capable. Points inside the frontier, that means that we are producing less than what we are capable. So we are being inefficient, and points outside, they are unattainable. Think about what is happening today in our nation. We have 40 million people out of work, which simply means that we are not using the resources to the fullest. Think about how many bridges, how many roads, how many highways, how many houses can these 40 million people produce if we were to put them to work? How about if we put these individuals to make cars? How many cars can 40 million men can do? And by men, I mean both genders. You know, if we put these humans to work, how much can they produce? How many bridges? How many fields can they plant? So as you can see, then we are wasting our resources. And as you can see, then our economy, instead of expanding, is actually contracting. Think about the risk, or not only the risk, but think about what is going on now with all states want to open the economies. Why do we need to open the economies? Well, we need to open the economies because people are suffering, because companies are closing down, because companies are going to go into bankruptcy, because people are literally killing themselves out of despair. It's not only the sickness that is killing people, but also, you know, the high increase in alcoholism, the high increase in drugs. If I'm not mistaken, the amount of alcohol in the United States in the last 6 weeks has increased by an average increase of more than 300%, which simply means the amount of alcohol that individuals are consuming in the United States is now 3 times higher than the amount that was 2 months ago. Why? Right? And that's the issue of despair. That's a cost involved. So then economic growth is an expansion of the frontier. And in most cases, technological advances that can help us to increase the frontier. And by increasing our economy, what we're actually doing is increasing our standards of living. We have more products, we have more jobs, and we're going to be, I guess, more satisfied. Okay, that's what economic growth brings. So then the 3 questions that all economists have to answer: what are we going to make, how are we going to make it, and for whom? In the United States, we answer those questions by the market. We allow the market to answer these questions. What type of products do we make in the United States? Those products that people are willing, able to buy. How do we make them? Well, using the cheapest, more efficient way of doing it. For whom do we make products? For whom do we make products? Well, we make products for those people that have the ability to pay that. Okay, so again, there are 3 ways in which we can answer the questions of what, how, and for whom. We can let the market do that, and that's what we do in the United States. Or we can try and tell the market, tell the companies, tell the people what to do. And that will be through government directive. In the United States, the government is involved in the economy, but not 100%. Right? We try to let the government out of the economy because we know that the market will always do better. So the reality is, guys, that we don't have an economy that is totally free or an economy that is totally directed by the government. Most economies, they are some type of a mixture of both. They are either market lean, or they actually government lean towards the government directive. Even countries like North Korea, which the government directs most of the economic activity, there's still some economic activity that is actually done by the market. The same thing in the United States. The market does most of the things, but the government is also involved in that. Okay, so that's a mixture of both. In the United States, we believe in the market. We believe in the invisible hand. And the visible hand is there are some motivational factors in the market that actually motivate people to do things. Look at this, guys. And let me use, let me call some of you. How many pairs of shoes do you have? Any of you? Any volunteers?
I think I have 5.
You have 5 pairs?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
I think
I've got at least 12.
You have 12? Shen, you have about 5? Okay, I personally have probably, let me see. I have about 5 pairs of sneakers. I have 5 pairs of riding boots. I ride motorcycles. You know, you have different motorcycles, different boots for different motorcycles and for different type of weather. You know, I have about 5 different type of motorcycle riding boots. And I have about 3 pairs of dress shoes. So in other words, I have about 15 pairs of shoes. And I'm a guy. I can only use one. Why do I have so many pairs of shoes? Because they're inexpensive, because they look cool, they don't cost a lot, and I can afford them. Now, think about the guy that makes the shoes. Think about the shoemaker. The shoemaker, the guy that makes my Harley Davidson boots, do you think he makes those boots because he wants to protect me from an accident? Did he make the boots because he wants to protect my toes? And the answer is no. The guy that makes shoes, the shoemaker, makes shoes not because he cares about you. The shoemaker makes shoes because he wants to make money. See, that's the invisible hand. So if he makes more shoes, he's going to make more money. So then the more shoes that we have, the more protective people are going to be as a result of this shoemaker desire to make money. And that's the invisible hand. So the profit motive is actually good, because when people want to make money, they create things that make people happy. And that's the invisible hand. right? So on the visible hand, we simply believe that the market is better. The market is able to determine the best level of output and the best level of prices, and it allocates resources. So we believe in the superiority of the market, laissez-faire. Do not intervene unless it's absolutely necessary. Does the market is always right? And the answer is no. Sometimes the market fails. Let me give you an example. The United States, there's a lot of consumption of illegal drugs. You know, there's a lot of people in the United States that, I don't know, they like to smoke coke. And we have these Mexicans and these Colombians and people from South America trying to bring these drugs into the United States. Why do these Mexicans and Colombians are bringing drugs into the United States? Are they bringing the drugs because they think it's fun? And the answer is no. They're bringing these drugs because they are making money. Now, why are they making money? Because there's a big demand for those drugs in the United States. See? So then we're supposed to be happy because they are drug addicts that want coke and there's coke there. So then everything's happy. People like to smoke crack and there are people willing to what? To make crack. When you saw about the couple that was arrested at the restroom of one of Walmart stores making crack right there, you know, in the store itself. I mean, that's the market. So sometimes the market fails because you provide the wrong type of food, of products, right? Think about, for example, here in the South, you know, most families have guns, multiple guns. I mean, I can go down the list and ask you if your family have guns. And I won't be surprised if all of you have guns at your house. And probably you have assault weapons and automatic, semi-automatic weapons. No, so the market is providing that. Then the question is that right? I mean, think about it. There are crazy people like me that would like to have a tank. I mean, that would be cool to have a tank, just to drive on the street. Can you imagine if there was no government regulation, how many crazy people like me would be driving in tanks? So then the market fails. So sometimes the market needs to be regulated. So the questions is that we know that the market is highly efficient, but in some cases, the market creates some type of market failures, right? So when we have market failure, then we need government intervention. But in many cases, government intervention itself also creates some failures, and that would be government failure. Let me give you an example. 30 million people have lost their job in this past couple of weeks. And some of these people were used to work at restaurants as servers. Now, because of the new plan that we create to try to help the economy, individuals are actually getting benefit not only from the state, but also they're getting a $600 per week unemployment benefit from the federal government. For some people now, being unemployed is actually has been beneficial because now they are making more money by being unemployed than actually going back to work. So if I used to work at a restaurant and the restaurant let me go and now they're opening and they call me back and say, Hassel, we need you to come and work, it would be very stupid of me to go back to work when I know I can make more money by staying unemployed. So as you can see, then the government has created a government failure. So then the reality is that the market is not always perfect, but the government is not always perfect. So in some cases, we need to choose between one and the others. However, it doesn't really matter how many failures the market has, the market is always superior than government intervention, right? This is what we know, guys. This is what we know. That hold on, I went here. Okay. So what we know is this, that the reality, there's not an economy that is all market-driven economy. We have a mixed economy, right? But what we know is this, and this is the important thing that you need to understand. Based on all the studies that have been made, we always know that the market is a superior system. if we look at the index of economic freedom, for example, we look at nations, how much freedom they have. Freedom of ownership, freedom of assembly, freedom of keeping profits, freedoms of mobility. In other words, that you are free to move from one place to the other one, freedom of ownership of resources, freedom of trade, freedom of all the freedom. The more freedom you have, the more developed the nation is. If we do a ranking of nations based on economic freedom, and then we'll do a ranking of nations on economic development, per capita income, in other words, that they are more successful economically speaking, and you can put freedom and economic and you put it simultaneously, and it's actually the same ranking, which simply means the higher your freedom, the higher your economic development. I mean, think about this. In some nations, for example, people are not allowed not even to move from one place to the other. Right? In some nations, people are not allowed to own even land. Look at this. Let's assume that I go and buy me a plot of land someplace here outside the city. A couple of acres. I'm going to make a farm right there. And a couple of years later, I see something black coming out of the ground, and I look at it and I realize that it's an oil. Boom! I just became rich because now I'm going to be able to put an oil, extracting machine there, whatever the case may be, and I'm going to become a rich guy because now I have oil in my property. Now, in other countries, you only own you're only the owner of the subsoil. Anything below that belongs to the government. So imagine a guy in Mexico, for example. This is the case. In Mexico, you don't own the land. You only own the topsoil. Anything below 4 inches belongs to the government. So I have a plot of land in Mexico, and the same story developed. I have oil now. What am I going to do? Am I going to try to extract the oil? No, because it's not mine. Am I going to report it to the government? And the answer is no, because if I report it to the government is going to take the land away from me. So as you can see, then that resource is not going to be extracted simply because there's no freedom. Right? So the economy is not going to be fully developed, and that's what we're trying to tell you. Okay, so then the choices is between market failure and government failure. I will always choose market failure over government failure. And again, so as you can see, then economics is all about us. It's about all the decisions that we make. So economics can be divided in 2 different types of categories, as positive economics or normative economics. Now, let me give you the difference between one and the other. And I'm just gonna make up numbers. If I tell you, in the United States, 100 million teenagers smoke 1 cigarette at least once a week. See, that's a statement that I'm making. In the United States, about 10 million teenagers smoke at least 1 cigarette per week. If I give you the statement like that, then that's a positive analysis. I just gave you a statement. But if I tell you, in the United States, 10 million teenagers smoke at least 1 cigarette per week, and that is wrong, or we need to change it, then we have just moved into normative economics. So there are positive economics and normative economics, or positive analysis and normative analysis. On positive economics, we only deal with facts. This is the way it is. I'm not telling you that it's right. I'm not telling you that it's wrong. I'm just telling you this is the way it is. Normative economics try to make a judgment. For example, if I tell you something like this, President Trump decided to allow the states to find solutions for the coronavirus. Right? The administration decide, or they choose not to longer be involved in the solutions to the problems. Okay, so that's a positive statement. That's positive economics. But if I make a judgment and if I say what the president is doing is right or the president is doing is wrong, then that will create a normative analysis, and that's something different. On this class, we're only going to be dealing with positive economics. I can tell you this is what the president is doing. Then you make the judgment if the president is doing the right job or the wrong job. And I'm not going to try to express my ideas because I think different than you and you think different than me, right? And that does not mean that we are wrong. It's just the way of thinking. So to avoid those problems, in this class, we're only going to be dealing with positive economics. And again, economics can be divided also on 2 major fields, macro And micro, you are in micro. Micro is the study of individual behavior in the economy, right? Macro is the study of the aggregate economic behavior. It's about the big picture, right? Right, again, we're gonna be making a couple of assumptions during this semester. We know that the economy is very vast and complex. There's no way we can explain everything. So we tend to simplify things, so it will make more sense. Look, I get a piece of paper, let's assume, and I make a paper plane, right? Then I go over here and let's assume that I find, I don't know, I find a model of a plane. Use your imagination. I have a paper plane right here in my hand, and I have a model of a plane right here. On this model of a plane right here, if you look very, I mean, it's incredibly very detailed. You can see actually passengers inside the, inside the plane, and you can see the engines and everything made out of plastic. And here you have a paper plane. Which of those two is a better model of a plane? Well, if you want to see how a plane looks like, this is a better model. But if I throw both of them into the air, right, which of those two is going to be a better model of a plane? Well, this one is going to crash, made out of plastic. This is a paper plane, it's going to stay in the air for a little bit longer. So that's why we're talking about models. We just make to explain something, right? Now, and again, something else that we also make in this class that we're going to use is we're going to make the assumption that we are dealing with rational people, like you. Now, who are the rational people? The rational people are the people that are always trying to maximize what is good for them. In other words, they try to do things that are going to make them happier. There are people that are not trying to maximize pain. Think about a guy. If a guy likes to cut himself, what do we say? This guy is irrational. He's hurting himself. He needs some type of mental help because he's actually hurting himself. That person is an irrational individual, right? Well, in this class, we're only going to be dealing with the assumption that we're dealing with rational people. And rational people are people that always want to maximize what is good for them and minimize what is bad for them. You are in class, you are rational people because you're trying to maximize what is good for you, okay? And this is the end of chapter number 1, guys. This is the end of chapter number 1. Okay, this is to explain the difference between normative and positive economics. A young girl gets married, marries to not work. She's now a single mother. She wants to go back to school. Should we supposed to help her as a nation? What do you think? Should we supposed to provide some type of grants for her to go to school? And the answer is yes, of course. Should we supposed to help her for childcare? Well, I don't think it's a bad idea. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Now, the girl tried to get back together with her husband. Things do not work, but either way, she ended up being pregnant. Now she has 2 kids. She's still a single mother. Should we increase the benefits? Okay. Then she has another kid, and another kid, and another kid. Now she has 6 kids. Should we continue giving her more money? Right? And for some of you, I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, so that's the reason why we don't deal with positive economics, because the way many people think is different than other people think. Some people say, of course, we're supposed to help them because the children is not fault. We're not going to let the child go hungry because of the decisions of mom and dad.